Blood dripped from my jaw onto the only suit I owned as I stared at the shattered mirror on my bedroom floor. My final interview was less than an hour away. "Dad, this interview could change my life," I said. My father didn't care. He pointed toward my sister's baby and said, "Your sister needs help. Go change the diaper." I looked at Brenda. She didn't even take her eyes off the TV. In that moment, something inside me changed. I realized I would never come first in this family, so I picked up my keys, walked out into the rain, and never came back. 7 years later, my phone rang. It was my father, the same man who once treated me like I didn't matter. But this time, his voice was shaking. "Please," he said, "I need your help. My name is Sophia, and for the first 22 years of my life, I was the invisible glue holding the Miller household together. If you looked at our family from the outside, you'd see a hardworking father, a charming older sister, and a quiet younger daughter. But inside those four walls, the reality was entirely different. I was the dependable one, the one who cooked the meals, scrubbed the floors, and silently managed the chaos, while my older sister, Chloe, was treated like royalty simply for existing. She had this uncanny ability to float through life without ever touching the ground of responsibility, and my father, David, absolutely adored her for it. I still remember the nights I sat at the small, cramped wooden desk in my tiny bedroom, the only space in the house that felt mine. The walls were thin, and I could hear the television blaring from the living room downstairs, where Chloe and my father would sit for hours, laughing and talking about everything and nothing. I would be up until 3 in the morning, studying for my pre-law college curriculum, my eyes burning under the dim light of a cheap desk lamp. My father never came into my room to ask how my studies were going. He never asked if I was tired or if I needed anything. But the moment Chloe cleared her throat or complained about a minor headache, the entire house would come to a grinding halt to cater to her. I genuinely believed back then, with the naive innocence of a girl desperately craving her family's love, that if I just worked hard enough, kept my head down, and absorbed their cruelty with a smile, one day my father would look at me with the same pride he wasted on Chloe. I thought my achievements would speak for themselves. I thought that when I made something of myself, when I became a lawyer, he would finally see me. Every time he made a sarcastic comment about how I spent too much time reading or how I wasn't being helpful enough around the house, I would swallow the lump in my throat and tell myself, "Just a little longer, Sophia. Once you graduate, everything will change." But the truth is, in a toxic family dynamic, the giver is never rewarded for their giving. They are only punished when they stop. Chloe was the star that could do no wrong, and I was the safety net designed to catch her every time she fell. My father didn't see me as a daughter with dreams. He saw me as a built-in utility, a piece of furniture that kept the house running. And the most heartbreaking part of it all was that I let them do it. I let them bleed me dry because I was terrified of being the outcast, terrified of the silence that would follow if I ever dared to speak up. I didn't know then that the silence of freedom is infinitely better than the noise of oppression. The dynamic in our house wasn't just unfair, it was a textbook study in systematic financial and emotional exploitation. When Chloe had her 2 children at a very young age, she didn't step up to become a mother. Instead, she treated her pregnancy like a minor inconvenience that the rest of the household was obligated to clean up. Her deadbeat boyfriend vanished from the picture before the second baby's ultrasound, and the entire staggering burden of raising those 2 infants didn't fall on Chloe, and it certainly didn't fall on my father. It fell entirely on my 20-year-old shoulders. I was balancing a grueling, heavy pre-law course load, rushing home from lectures not to study, but to act as a full-time, unpaid nanny. I spent over 30 hours a week washing baby bottles, changing dirty diapers, rocking screaming infants to sleep at 2 in the morning, and prepping endless meals. While Chloe spent her days lounging on the living room sofa, scrolling through her phone and watching reality television, I was drowning. My father, David, would walk past her mess, walk past her sleeping on the couch at noon, and come straight to my room. He would knock aggressively on my door, throw it open without waiting, and yell at me because the kitchen sink had a few dishes in it, or because the babies were crying while I was trying to take an online midterm exam. "Family sticks together, Sophia," he would always say, his voice dripping with that manipulative, heavy guilt. That was his favorite phrase. It was his ultimate weapon. But over time, I realized that family sticks together was just his personal code for demanding that I completely sacrifice my sleep, my savings, and my own sanity to secure Chloe's comfort. And let's talk about the financial draining, because that's where the malice truly showed. I worked a part-time job at the campus library, earning a meager $450 monthly stipend. Every single penny of that money was supposed to go toward my textbooks, my gas, and a small savings account I was trying to build so I could eventually move out. But I never saw that money. The moment my direct deposit hit every month, David would be standing at the kitchen counter with a stack of past-due electricity bills or a grocery receipt. "Your sister needs formula, Sophia. Your sister needs diapers. Are you really going to let your own niece and nephew starve just so you can buy books?" He would shame me. I would look at Chloe, who had just bought a brand new $80 designer makeup palette the day before using David's credit card, and my chest would tighten with a mixture of rage and absolute helplessness. I handed over my debit card month after month. I bought the groceries, I bought the clothes for Chloe's kids, I paid the internet bills so Chloe could stream her shows without interruption. I was literally funding my own exploitation while surviving on instant noodles and stale bread. David systematically drained me, making sure I never had enough money to escape, ensuring I stayed trapped in that house as their permanent, free domestic servant. They wanted me small, they wanted me broke, and they wanted me compliant. The ultimate betrayal happened on a Tuesday morning, a day that was supposed to be the turning point of my entire life. I had made it to the final round interview for a prestigious corporate law residency downtown. It was a highly competitive position that offered a $95,000 starting salary, full benefits, and most importantly, a definitive ticket out of that house and out of poverty. I had spent 6 months preparing for this single day, studying case files until my eyes bled, and saving every spare dollar I could scrape together for a single professional navy blue interview suit. I was standing in front of the hallway mirror at 7:30 a.m., carefully tying my hair back and adjusting my blazer, trying to calm the nervous fluttering in my stomach. I looked at my reflection, and for the first time in years, I felt a flicker of hope. I was finally going to break free. Suddenly, the heavy front door slammed shut. I turned around to see my father, David, blocking the exit. He didn't look at my suit, and he didn't wish me luck. He just crossed his arms, his face dark with irritation. "You need to take your suit off and stay home today, Sophia," he said casually, as if he were asking me to pass the salt. "Chloe's friends are picking her up for a beach weekend trip, and she needs someone to watch the kids until Sunday night." I stared at him, completely stunned. "What?" "Dad, no, I can't. I told you 3 weeks ago about this day. Today is my final interview. It's at 9 a.m. If I miss this, I lose the residency." "I don't care about your little school interview," David snapped, his voice rising. "Your sister has been stressed out, and she deserves a break. Family comes first. You're staying here." I looked past his shoulder into the living room. Chloe was sitting on the sofa, 10 feet away, sipping coffee and painting her nails while a reality show blared on the television. She didn't even turn her head to look at me, but I saw the small, smug smirk on her lips. She knew exactly what she was doing. She had planned this trip specifically to sabotage me. "She's right there, Dad," I said, my voice shaking with a dangerous mixture of grief and anger. "She is their mother. Why can't she stay with her own children for once? I have sacrificed my time, my money, and my life for her mistakes. I am not missing this interview. Move out of my way." I took a step forward, reaching for the doorknob. The words had barely left my mouth when David's hand struck my face. The force of the slap was so brutal, so violent, that it sent me flying sideways. My head collided sharply with the heavy, antique wooden frame of the hallway mirror, and then the glass shattered. It was a deafening, terrifying sound as hundreds of sharp, jagged shards showered down on me, cutting through my blazer and slicing into the skin of my temple and cheek. I lay there on the hardwood floor, gasping for air, the left side of my face burning with a searing, agonizing heat. I could feel something warm and wet trickling down my neck. It was blood. My vision blurred as I looked up from the debris. David stood over me, his chest heaving, showing absolutely no remorse. He didn't lean down to help me. He didn't ask if I was okay. Instead, he reached into the plastic grocery bag on the console table, pulled out a heavy, dirty diaper, and threw it directly at my face. It landed right next to my hand in the broken glass. "If you want to live under my roof and eat my food, you do what you're told," he snarled, pointing his finger at my bleeding face. "Now clean yourself up and go change the baby's diaper, or get out and never come back." He turned his back on me and walked into the kitchen to pour himself a cup of coffee. Chloe just kept painting her nails, the television still laughing in the background. I lay in the shards of my own family's malice, and in that exact moment, the girl who wanted their love died on that floor. I picked up my purse, ignored the blood dripping down my neck, stood up, and walked out of that front door into the pouring rain. I never looked back. I sat in my car in the parking lot outside the corporate high-rise, pressing a rough paper towel against my temple to stop the bleeding. The reflection in my rearview mirror was horrifying. The left side of my face was swollen a deep, angry red, and a thin, jagged line near my eyebrow was slowly oozing blood where a shard of the mirror had sliced into me. My hands were shaking so violently I could barely hold the steering wheel. I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream, to drive to a police station, to just give up and melt into the pavement. But then, I looked down at my navy blue blazer. There was still a light dusting of glass sparkling on my shoulder. And suddenly, the shaking stopped. A strange, freezing cold washed over my entire body. The tears that had been stinging the back of my eyes simply dried up. My father thought that the pad would break me. He thought the threat of being homeless would force me to crawl back into that living room on my knees and pick up that diaper. But as I wiped the dried blood from my neck with a wet wipe, I realized something that changed me forever. My empathy had been my prison. My desire for their validation was the chain they used to drag me down. They didn't hit me because they thought I was weak. They hit me because they realized I was finally becoming strong enough to leave. I walked into that building at exactly 8:55 a.m. I walked past the receptionist with my head held high, ignoring the subtle, shocked glances at the neat bandage over my left eye. When I sat across from the 3 senior partners for the final interview, I didn't offer a pathetic excuse. I didn't tell them my father had assaulted me. I looked the managing partner dead in the eye and said, "I had a minor accident with a shattered mirror this morning, but nothing was going to keep me from this room today." I didn't just ace that interview, I dominated it. Every ounce of pain, every single hour of sleep I had lost over the last 4 years, and all the suppressed rage inside my soul turned into a sharp, brilliant, intellectual weapon. I answered every legal hypothetical with absolute, cold precision. When they offered me the residency position on the spot, along with the $95,000 salary, I didn't smile. I just thanked them, signed the contract, and walked out. The moment I reached my car, I took my phone out. I didn't call David to brag. I didn't send a long, emotional paragraph to Chloe telling her how much she hurt me. I simply went into my contacts. One by one, I blocked David, Chloe, and every single extended relative who had ever turned a blind eye to their behavior. I changed my phone number that afternoon. I drove straight to a small, unfurnished, 400-square-foot studio apartment across the state line, paid the first and last month's rent in cash, and slept on the hard floor with my blazer wrapped around me like a blanket. I was completely alone, broke, and bruised, but for the first time in my life, I was entirely free. I promised myself that the girl who absorbed their blows was dead, and if they ever managed to cross my path again, they would find a woman made of absolute stone. Over the next 7 years, I didn't just survive. I built an absolute fortress. I climbed the corporate ladder with a relentless, cold focus that terrified my peers. I specialized in asset protection and foreclosure law, eventually becoming a senior partner at one of the top firms in the state. I bought my own home, a beautiful sunlit property with massive floor-to-ceiling windows. I made sure there wasn't a single antique mirror in my entire house. I had completely erased the Miller family from my existence. My life was peaceful, structured, and entirely under my control. Then, on a rainy Thursday afternoon, my private phone buzzed. It was an unlisted number. Normally, I would ignore it, but something about the persistent rhythm of the ring made me press answer. "Sophia? Please, Sophia, don't hang up. God, please don't hang up." The voice was thin, wheezing, and laced with an absolute primal panic. It took my brain a solid 5 seconds to recognize it. It was my father, David. But this wasn't the booming, tyrannical voice that used to echo through the hallways of my childhood. This was the voice of a broken, terrified old man. He was weeping openly, suffocating on his own breaths. Instead of screaming at him, instead of letting my heart race, I felt that familiar, freezing cold wash over me. I sat back in my leather office chair, adjusted my glasses, and spoke in the flat, emotionless tone I used with opposing counsel. "You have exactly 60 seconds to tell me why you are calling this number, David." "Sophia, I'm losing the house," he sobbed, his voice cracking. "The bank. They're evicting me next month. I have nowhere to go. My heart is failing, Sophia. I need medical treatment and I don't have the money." As he kept crying, the story slowly unraveled, and it was a masterpiece of poetic justice. 3 years prior, Chloe had met a smooth-talking man who convinced her they should open an upscale restaurant venture. Because Chloe had no credit and no assets, she had spent months manipulating David, crying to him just like she used to do when she wanted a beach trip. And David, blind as always to his favorite daughter's selfishness, had agreed to take out a massive $180,000 secondary mortgage on the family home to fund her dream. Predictably, the restaurant collapsed within 8 months. Chloe's boyfriend vanished with the remaining capital, and the moment the bank started sending foreclosure notices, Chloe did exactly what she always did when things got messy. She packaged up her kids, packed her bags, and abandoned David. She didn't just leave the town, she legally blocked his number, changed her address, and left him alone in a dilapidated house with a mountain of toxic debt and a failing heart. He had spent 2 years trying to pay the mortgage by skipping his own heart medications, and now he was entirely ruined. "Sophia, please," he whimpered. "You're a big-shot lawyer now. I saw your face on a billboard downtown. Please save me. Family sticks together, remember?" Hearing that phrase again almost made me laugh. I didn't yell. I didn't mock him. I simply felt the final piece of the puzzle click into place. "Stay in the house, David," I said calmly. "I will handle the bank." I hung up the phone and immediately went to work. I didn't hire a defense attorney for him. Instead, I used my firm's resources to initiate a highly strategic, aggressive legal maneuver. Through an anonymous LLC I controlled, I approached the distressed bank directly. They were eager to get the toxic asset off their books, so I bought David's mortgage note myself for a fraction of the value. I didn't clear his debt. I didn't save him. I became his primary creditor. I owned the roof over his head, I owned the walls he slept in, and I owned every square inch of the dirt he walked on. 2 weeks later, I drove back to my hometown for the first time in 7 years. I pulled my luxury sedan up to the curb of the old house. The property was in complete ruins. The lawn was overgrown with weeds, the paint was peeling like dead skin, and the roof sagged under the weight of neglect. I stepped out of the car, smoothed down my designer blazer, and walked up the creaking wooden steps. I pushed the front door open without knocking. It wasn't locked. The moment I stepped into the hallway, my eyes instantly fell on the wall where the mirror used to hang. The space was completely empty, just a faded, dark rectangle on the wallpaper where the dust had settled around it. A frail, trembling figure shuffled out of the kitchen. David looked 20 years older. His skin was gray, his shoulders were hunched, and his chest heaved as he struggled to breathe. When he saw me standing there, sharp, elegant, and powerful, he burst into tears of relief, stumbling forward with his arms open. "Oh, Sophia, thank God." He wept, trying to reach for my hand. "You did it. You bought the note. The bank told me the foreclosure was halted. Thank you, my beautiful girl. I knew you wouldn't abandon your father. When can I sign the papers to wipe the debt?" I stepped back, avoiding his touch, my face completely expressionless. I pulled a thick legal manila folder from my briefcase and dropped it onto the dust-covered console table. "You aren't signing anything to wipe away the debt, David," I said, my voice cutting through the damp air like a scalpel. "The foreclosure was halted because I am your new landlord. I own this house now." He froze, his jaw dropping as he stared at the legal documents. "What? But, Sophia..." We're family. You're my daughter. You're going to let me live here for free, right? Chloe completely blocked my number. She left me. I have nobody else. I looked at the old man who had once broken glass over my head, the man who had thrown a dirty diaper at my bleeding face to protect a lazy, ungrateful sister, and I felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no hatred, just a vast, empty vacuum of indifference. I have legally transferred this entire property into a state-managed senior care trust, I said coldly. The state will take control of this house, liquidate all of your remaining valuable personal assets, including your car and the antique furniture, to pay off the initial principal investment I made. In return, they will allocate you a small, government-subsidized room in an assisted living care facility 20 miles from here. You will have a roof over your head, and you will receive your heart medication. David gasped, clutching his chest, his eyes wide with horror. An assisted living home? Sophia, please, that's a warehouse for old people. I'll be completely alone. You have to come visit me. You have to help me. I turned my back on him and walked toward the front door. As my hand touched the brass knob, I paused and looked back over my shoulder one last time. I paid your debt, so my conscience is entirely clear, David. I gave you exactly what you deserved. Survival, nothing more, I said, my voice echoing in the empty, dusty hallway. As for your loneliness, your favorite daughter is the one you chose. She's the one you broke a mirror over my head for. Go call Chloe and ask her to change your diapers. I stepped out of the house, closing the heavy front door behind me, and walked out into the bright, beautiful sunshine. I got into my car, turned on the music, and drove away into my quiet, independent, and completely successful life. He was trapped in the silence of his own choices, and I was finally, beautifully, completely free.